In an earlier video, I talked about the filters in our brains that shape the way we perceive the world around us. But which bits of the world do we delete, distort, and generalize? And which do we focus on? Metaprograms are the mental processes that direct our attention. They're the habits for how we think about the world we see. Metaprograms are NLP's way of describing how we select what we focus on. For example, whether we focus on similarities or differences. NLP lists a lot of metaprogram types. Some authors list as many as 50 or 60, and some of them look a lot like personality types. However, NLP does not see metaprograms as fixed in us. Indeed, some NLP practitioners claim that you can either modify or replace whole metaprograms. Again, we're not going to look at that. What we're going to look at is a selection of 7 of the most common and, more importantly, the most useful metaprograms for a manager to understand. The first we'll look at is the relationship filter. When you see a cluster of things, what do you notice about them? Are your eyes first drawn to the similarities, the things that are in some way the same? Or do you first notice the differences and identify those objects within the cluster that are different from the rest? This is known as the relationship filter. Of course, you might be somewhere in the middle, but at the extremes, people are known as either matchers or mismatchers. Mismatchers are ideal for finding faults and errors and spotting mistakes. They're also very good at sorting. Matchers are better at finding patterns and at building rapport. Second is the chunk size filter. How do you like to receive and work with information? Do you like it in big chunks so that you can see the whole big picture? Or do you prefer to receive it in small increments so that you can get a grip of the individual details? If you're a big chunk person, then you need to split up the overall picture so that you can understand how the working parts interact. If you're a small chunk person, you need to assemble all of the individual parts into the overall pattern. The ability to approach a problem in both ways from both ends gives you greater flexibility and makes it more likely that not only you will find a good solution to the problem, but that you can check the robustness of your solution. So make a habit of deliberately attacking problems both from the big chunk end of the spectrum and also from the small chunk. Build up from the details and cut down from the overall picture. Our third metaprogram is our direction filters. Are you drawn towards the things you want, or do you find yourself trying to avoid the things you don't want? These two extremes are towards and away from filters. If you can understand someone's preferences in terms of direction, you can be better able to motivate them. You can motivate towards people by offering them something to work towards, whereas you motivate away from people by showing them the problems or the dissatisfaction they'll gain if they don't do something. Introducing towards thinking can boost optimism and creativity, whilst away from thinking is an ideal way of evaluating and identifying risks and finding flaws in potential solutions or decisions. Next, we have the convincer representation filter. What does it take to convince you that something is correct? Do you have to hear about it from someone else? Do you have to see some pictures, some images, some photos, some graphs, some diagrams? Or do you need to read about it? Or do you prefer a table of data? The different modes by which we take in information are not equal in the weight we give them. Each of us has a preference not only for how we assimilate data, but how compelling we find it in supporting an argument. Therefore, knowing about someone's representation filters will give you a better chance of persuading them by choosing to present your information and your argument in the representational system: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or feeling or doing or getting involved, or digital, data. And don't forget that if you are presenting to an audience and you've got a wide number of people, then you need as much as possible to combine the different representations in the way you present your information. Fifth is the frame of reference filter. When you've done a good job, how do you know you've done a good job? Is it because someone has told you, or is it because you know it in yourself? Do you have an external frame of reference that needs to validate every decision, every idea, every piece of work you do? Or do you have an internal frame of reference which allows you to feel confident about your choices, about your work, about the things that you do? Of course, as with many of these meta programs, there is a whole spectrum of possibilities. Some people are entirely internally referenced and some people are entirely externally referenced. However, most of us fall somewhere on the spectrum, some closer to one end and some closer to the other. If someone is highly internally referenced, then they can act confidently on their own without other people having to tell them. That can make them very deliberate, very decisive, very confident. The danger, of course, is they are less likely to invite or be influenced by the opinions of others, which can lead them to make some serious mistakes. At the other end of the spectrum, we've got highly externally referenced people. These people are keen to take the advice of others. In fact, they need the endorsement of others before they feel confident to act. The downside of that is they are far less likely to be willing to take the initiative. And when they do take the initiative, they will often doubt themselves and second guess their choices. This can also have a big impact on the way we evaluate our performance at work. Highly internally referenced people will know whether their work is good or bad. The problem is, if they don't have the experience or the skills to assess it properly, then they may make faulty judgments. On the other hand, externally referenced people need to be told when they're doing a good job, or indeed when they're doing a poor job. This can lead to a lack of confidence in people who are effective, but it can also lead to people who are ineffective working, if not supervised well, in the wrong direction. Next, we have the primary interest filter. What is it that mainly interests you in life? A good way to tell whether you're in the right job for you is to ask yourself how that job compares with the things that really interest you in life. Are you motivated, for example, by people, or places, or things, or activity, or information and ideas? These different things motivate us, and where we find ourselves in a situation which is high in those particular modalities, then we will be comfortable and energized. If, on the other hand, you find yourself in a job which is low on the things that primarily interest you, your motivation will be low and eventually you will become miserable. By the way, these primary interests also to a large extent dictate what we become good at, because we feel enthusiastic about practicing the things that interest us. So, an easy way to get a strong impression of what someone's primary interests are is to observe what they're good at. Finally, in our limited list of meta programs is adapting style. How do you adapt to a new challenge? Some people like to have, or better still create, loads of options so that they can figure out which is the best and pursue it. They are highly flexible. Others like the certainty of knowing that there is a set process that they can follow, and the confidence to know that if they do follow it, things will work out well. As you'd guess, some jobs need, or at least are better suited to procedures people, whilst other jobs favour options people. NLP's meta-programs give us a great way to understand the different ways people tick, and also why some people get on with others because they have similar meta-program patterns, and other people clash, particularly if they're trying to do a piece of work but have very different meta-program preferences dictating the way they go about it. As with all things though, diversity is a huge benefit to a team. So a team with people who have different meta-program preferences is going to be able to create better, more innovative and creative problem solving and make stronger, more robust decisions. However, the challenge of managing them is harder. But if you rise to that challenge, you will get better solutions to your problems. You will get better decisions. You will have a better team. Please do give this video a like if you've enjoyed it or learned from it. I'll be creating loads more great management courses content for you, so please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any of it. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and in the meantime, keep learning.